bit of good news for you. When the nomination hearings for Trump's cabinet pick started a little bit over a week ago, there was some initial good news, and people went hard on them with questions. Al Franken, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, even Tim Kaine. And then it started to come out that the initial Republican opposition to some of them was fading away, and in some cases, even strong progressive senators are going to vote for some of the terrible picks, like Ben Carson for HUD, Elizabeth Warren announcing that she will actually support him. And it's a complicated case. I know we're unlikely to get anyone better. That's how shitty of a situation we're in. But it is still kind of disheartening. But there is good news. So the minority leader, Chuck Schumer, announced today that he is going to oppose Rex Tillerson, who's being nominated to be the head of the State Department, the head of diplomacy for the United States, going to a guy who has no experience in international diplomacy. All he has is his business experience running Exxon Mobil. And when you combine that with some of his past with international actors like Vladimir Putin and his views on climate change, refugees, Muslim bans, and all of that, big issue for a lot of people, including now Chuck Schumer. So he gave a couple of statements. He says, "I will oppose his nomination, and I encourage the full Senate to do the same." He went into more detail, saying, "Mr. Tillerson's refusal to back new sanctions on Russia and his refusal to even pledge to fully defend the current sanctions regime is unacceptable but not surprising given his closeness to Vladimir Putin and the depth of Exxon's investment in Russia." And really, regardless of what you think about him individually as a person, whether he likes or hates Russia or Putin or whatever, Exxon Mobil has massive business interests in potential deals that could be made with Russia. I'm sure that you've heard about previously on the channel that $500 billion deal that was sunk years ago and could potentially be brought back under Donald Trump. Now, that's huge money, and we're going to return to that shortly, but he did say a little bit more. He put out these tweets saying, Rex Tillerson won't recuse himself from hashtag Exxon-related issues and doesn't display values of American foreign policy. I'm voting no. He also said Tillerson won't lift a finger on climate change and won't rule out Muslim ban. I won't vote for him. And Tillerson won't divest from hashtag Exxon, won't recuse himself, doesn't display values of American foreign policy. I'm voting no. And he put those out in both English and Spanish. And this is, of course, good information. Now, on the climate change, really fast, let's focus on that. It's a little bit of a complicated story about him personally, although in effect it doesn't really matter. Under Tillerson, Exxon Mobil started to change some of its public messaging to admit the possibility of human contributions to climate change. But it still funded groups that were putting out papers specifically designed to create uncertainty in regular people as to whether it's happening. So regardless of whether he thought it was happening or not, he was putting his money where his mouth wasn't, I suppose, in this case. Tillerson also publicly backed a national tax on carbon way back in 2007, yet the company lobbied against two bills that would have established carbon taxes in Massachusetts, and that's up until just a year ago. That's when Tillerson was chief executive there. And so regardless of what he thinks on that issue, we know what his company does when he's the leader of it. And then with the Muslim ban, I mean, this is a sort of thing where the Secretary of State is an incredibly important position, at least equal in importance for American foreign policy as the head of defense. And it's supposed to be someone who has networks abroad, who has experience dealing with other countries, especially leaders that might be hostile to us, who has experience and knowledge in foreign policy and diplomacy. Rex Tillerson has absolutely none of that. And don't get it twisted, this is an incredibly high position. I mean, he's one of the top in the line of succession to potentially become the president. And this is a guy whose only qualification, apparently, and I've seen no one explain it better than this, he was the head of Exxon Mobil, and Donald Trump likes Exxon Mobil. And so Rex Tillerson gets in. We said yesterday, in 2009, I believe it was, Barack Obama had a pledge that all people coming into the administration had to sign to say that they would recuse themselves from business that affects the companies they'd worked for. Well, that is kaput. You don't have that anymore. And so Rex Tillerson coming in, it's not like we have these hypothetical concerns about the fact that he might be more interested in the stock price of Exxon Mobil and their potential profits down the line than the best interests of the American people. That is assured at this point. That's why he didn't sign that pledge. That's why he was picked in the first place. And one of the things that I have been focusing on and will continue to be focused on under Donald Trump is the oncoming looting of America. And that's going to come in a lot of ways. Betsy DeVos is a part of it. Ben Carson is going to be a part of it. And we've got interesting news on Betsy DeVos coming on the main show in just a couple of hours. But Rex Tillerson might be the biggest, because a $500 billion contract that could rematerialize any day now. Money in that quantities, you don't see that thrown around even in Washington all that often. And so it's not crazy to think that that is the reason that he was brought in. And so look, good on Chuck Schumer to say that he's going to vote against him. The bad news is that this is going to happen, I believe, at the end of next week. The actual vote is going to happen, according to Mitch McConnell. Will they be able to stop him? Probably not, unfortunately. Because despite the fact that Marco Rubio was all tough and big man and asking hard questions during the nomination hearing, he then eventually said, yeah, I'll probably vote for him. He's not qualified, and he has this really weird relationship with Russia and Vladimir Putin. But whatever, I'm not going to actually put my votes where my questions were. I've got weird variations on that coming out today. Other Democrats are probably going to oppose him, and they should. I mean, this is a guy who's not qualified for his position in any way, and that could potentially have major consequences for us, for our economy, and also for our national security. And so good that they're going to go against him. We're going to have, as I said, updates on a couple of the other nominees on the show later today, so be sure to tune in for that. If you'd like to see more of my ongoing commentary, you can do that on Twitter at John Idarola, on YouTube at youtube.com/John Idarola, and also youtube.com/ThinkTank. Thank you for joining me, guys. I'll see you on the main show with Michael Shore and Jimmy Dore in just a little.